Well, I want to welcome you guys to the Quick, and
Thanks for having us.
this is this is a show where we just we just talk about those magical moments that sort of the magical moments of connection that opera makes possible, and that can be either through some sort of connection to a community or a connection to an audience member, or in this case, two actor singers, and I'll put actor first because both of you guys, you're consummate musicians and incredible singers, but you both are just two men that I look up to in our business as far as commitment to a moment and to acting. I've seen both you guys break my heart in an audience before. So just the idea of having two of you together in any opera, is kind of, that's a pretty cool casting choice, man. I mean, that's a lot. It's two emotional powerhouses right there together.
Thanks,
and then
Mike.
two of you in a show like Silent Night, which is a powder keg of emotion anyway, to use a terrible analogy.
For sure.
So I mean, some folks that listen to this show may not be familiar with a lot of 21st century operas. So can you guys just give us a quick rundown of Silent Night and talk a little bit about that production in Atlanta that sort of surrounds this relationship you guys developed?
I'll defer to Andy, who was part of the premiere cast and has done this have you been in this show as many times as like Craig? I think this is like a running joke thing between you guys, isn't it?
I had Craig Irvin. I was up on him because I did it in Minnesota the last time they did it. And so I had more performances, but then he just did it in Utah and I was not in that show. So he is now he now reigns supreme. He has done it more than anyone.
And I'm sure he lets you know about that.
Yeah, I was wondering, does he ever remind you of that?
No, never. Craig?
No, never. No.
Heavy-handed?
He's a pretty humble guy.
Yeah.
Just
he's really introverted in all of
the wallflower.
I'm like, Craig, you've been quiet all night. What's wrong, man?
Said no one ever.
You gotta start talking if you're gonna hang out with us, Craig Irvin. Okay, seriously, guys, emotions.
Let's talk about some real stuff.
Yeah, come on.
No, Silent Night was as an opera written composed by Kevin Puss with the libretto by Mark Campbell. It premiered at Minnesota Opera in 2011, and it went on to win the Pulitzer Prize for Music in 2012. And it is it's an adaptation of the film called Joyeux Noël, which is historical fiction. It's a fictional account of several different stories that happened during the Christmas truce of 1914 during World War I. And over the course of the story, you meet the French soldiers, the German soldiers, and the Scottish soldiers, and you see them get drafted. One of the central characters in the show is an opera singer. He and his wife are famous opera singers, and he gets drafted to fight for the German army. And then there's this huge battle scene, and then you see the fallout from the battle scene. And then the end of Act One, the Christmas truce happens, and which is one of the most amazing things about the opera is that the climactic moment of the opera is a absence of conflict, and it's just all this tension that happens, and then they decide they're going to put down their guns and share Christmas Eve together and have some laughs, share some gifts, drink too much liquor. And then, so that's how Act One ends. And then in Act Two, you find out and it begins on a very somber note. They extend the truce to bury the dead. And then you find out that word has gotten back to their superior officers, and they all get hauled out on the carpet and reprimanded for fraternizing with the enemy. They all get sent off to some of the worst places in the war, surely off to their deaths. And you get this one sort of glimmer of this moment of peace that happens in one of the most atrocious wars that ever was. And it's a really, really beautiful story. And it's a beautiful story of history, and it's a beautiful telling of a beautiful story. And it's awesome that it's an opera, because I think the Christmas truce, one of the reasons why the Christmas truce happened in the first place is because soldiers were singing songs, Christmas carols, and their trenches were so close together they could hear each other singing. And I think music is one of the things that actually made the truce happen historically. And to have a musical rendition of it, an operatic rendition of it, is really awesome, and it's, you know, it's a proven masterpiece. It's been successful everywhere it's been, and you know, I was very lucky to be a part of the premiere, and I was part of the workshop process too, and shut me up anytime. But during the workshop, I remember, because I've done a lot of those workshops, we all have, and some of them are awesome and some of them are, you know, but
a little less awesome.
Right. But we were doing it, and I was singing the scene, and then, you know, I just dutifully learned my parts, and then I didn't really know much of the rest of the show. But it gets to the sleep chorus, which was one of the most iconic pieces of music in the whole score. And it's this gorgeous, you hear each camp singing about sleeping and how, you know, just getting a few hours of sleep, and it's their only sort of moment of peace in this whole awful war. But they started singing that, and I remember I was taken aback. I was like, oh, and I looked around, and everyone in the room was kind of like doing that same thing, like, oh, this is actually really special. This is not just some fly-by-night new opera. This is actually amazing. And that feeling, you know, and then, so, I don't know, in the premiere, we all had this feeling of specialness, you know, and that we were all bringing everything we had to bring this new thing into creation. And you know, and Mark and Kevin were so great. They were editing it as we went and would make changes depending on what Eric, the director, wanted. And so cut to the remount of it. And I think, well, that was special for Minnesota. You know, I don't know. I'm so sentimental about it now. Can't be objective about it. So maybe it was just we caught lightning in a bottle in St. Paul, and that's it.
Man, I'll just for a pause there, man. Isn't that all three of us do a lot of new work?
Yeah.
And ain't that funny? We all have this. I mean, I don't know about you, Matt, but I'm going, yeah. Because you're so close to a piece, and you're like, this is the best piece ever. Nothing could ever be. But then, as somebody who does this a lot, you're like, well, but maybe I'm just too in love with it. I'm too close.
Maybe you're just too personally invested.
Yeah.
Or not too personally invested. I would just say personally invested.
Yeah,
because
to be objective.
Yeah, exactly. But also that, you know, this is the other thing about doing all of these 21st century works, is that, like, I still maintain that the reason why we love them so much is because we are the ones as performers who know the works intimately and can truly drink in all of the special moments.
Yeah.
That an audience member that maybe has seen it once, twice, even thrice, right? Those things still fly over their heads.
Yeah. But I'll have to say, and I know that we've all been a part of shows like this. I mean, obviously, Dead Man Walking is like this too, where you show it to someone for the first time, and you think, well, this is really special to me. I don't know if it's going to relate. But then I'd have people, you know, we have a sing through of Silent Night, and the chorus is like weeping, and they're just talking about how special it is, and they're saying, and they're like giving everything they have. And, you know, a lot of times you get a chorus who's been there a long time, and they don't necessarily want to do all the stuff, but like every chorus I've been involved in has like, yeah, sure, we'll lift heavy stuff. Sure, we'll.
Oh man, like
dead body across the stage.
You find the jaded choruses, especially like, you know, when I coming up through this new works thing that, I mean, really it's been like the past like 20 years, 15, 10 years really where it was hot, right?
Yeah.
And you'll go to a new company that's not really used to doing new works that much. And you have like the kind of the grizzled veterans in the chorus, and they're like, oh, it's new garbage, you know?
Yeah.
And you can see them learning it and hating it and hating it and hating it and a little bit less and a little bit less. And then that inflection point happens. And boom, you got them. When you got the chorus, when you look over and you see tears coming down their face.
Yeah.
That's when I can see that in a dress rehearsal, I'm like, the audience is we're gonna kill them because these guys have seen everything and better than me. So like,
their heart grew 3 sizes that day.
You know, and so that sounds like, I mean, that was that second time was for you. I mean, there's the inflection point in the room.
Yeah.
Which for me, like with Dead Man, is always the first room run when we get to the death scene. get to the death scene, and anybody who's been skeptical in the room up to that point, we got him. Yeah. And so that's that inflection point. And then there's a personal inflection point with you as an artist where you go, my love for this piece and my intimacy with this piece does not take away from the fact that it is a great piece.
Yeah.
And I can objectively say that this is great, even though as close as I am to it.
Yeah.
I can say, and it was in this Atlanta performance, this was the number 2 time?
No, this was like this, for me, it was, I think, maybe the 6th one I did, 5 or 6.
Yeah, so what the deal was, Mike, is that this was the production that Tomer mounted
new
in
production.
Wexford.
Yeah.
So this was the first, and I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, maybe the first like
International?
Major, it was definitely the first European production, but then it was the first major departure from that initial Minnesota production.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was the first,
And
it was
so
the first new production of it.
Where Eric's production from Minnesota was on this turntable. Tomer and, oh gosh, what's set designer?
Vita.
No, she was costumes.
Rome? Earhart?
Yes, Earhart
yeah.
won.
Oh, Earhart. Yeah.
Sorry, Earhart. I wish I could have remembered that immediately. Earhart went and built this like vertical set where we had each of the 3 camps constantly being able to be seen
Oh, that's great.
in scene the entire show.
So you could check in with them even when they're not playing a scene. And one of the hardest parts about this show is that there's so many characters, and just even keeping track of them. This was a way to sort of mitigate, like, oh, the Scots are up there and the French are here and the Germans are here always.
Yeah.
And then when the Christmas truce happens, everyone comes downstage
of this major 3-level structure.
Wow.
So it was a really good way of sort of like circumventing the challenges of keeping all 3 camps in the audience's mind. Yeah, it was really smart. And so this was sort of, Atlanta was the second place that this Tomer Earhart Vita production went. Was in Atlanta, and then it subsequently went to Glimmerglass and Austin. Yeah.
And to tremendous success at all those places. I mean, I've been dying to get into this piece because I haven't heard nothing but incredible.
You haven't done this piece yet?
No.
You should be doing this piece.
Yeah. One of these, I'm sure it'll come. Because it's the roles you can play. I mean, we're all getting a little gray, but we can still.
Oh, there's tons. There's like 1,000 parts. It's one of these. I mean, if I have a gripe about a lot, well, I mean, not just this piece, but other modern pieces too, is that in the 21st century, we maybe shouldn't be writing operas that only have men in them.
I mean, honestly, guys, I do not think that we have enough opportunities to perform as men in this business, and I'm going to do something about it.
I mean, going to write a 50-person male opera.
Oh man!
But we live in a post-Hamilton world. Like men can play women's parts and vice. I mean,
that's true. I watched Wozzeck in Germany in the not Wojciech, which is the play, and the Wojciech was a woman, and so I was like, hey, well, all bets are off in Germany. Boy.
I remember when we were at CCM, I went to go see Angels in America, and Roy Cohn was played by a woman, and that was the first time that I had seen sort of gender-neutral casting to that degree, and it was like it blew my mind how effective it was. It was amazing.
Incredible.
I digress.
So, who are you guys in this show? Like, what roles do you play in this? I mean, tell me about who you are and where you fit in the story.
So, I played the role of Lieutenant Audebert, who is
some good diction right there.
You like that? I'm in academia now, Mike.
You don't teach at a college, do you?
I'm in academia now, Mike. I
That's
have to demonstrate these things at all times. Let me say that again. Lieutenant Audebert.
Oh my gosh. We may have to pause the recording for a bit.
So, I come from a military family, and I get called off to war. and what the introduction to this character is when Audebert is saying goodbye to his wife, his pregnant wife. Hey, sweetie pie. Hey, Evie. Dad's doing an interview. You want to say hi for a second, and then you got to go back to Mama.
We're keeping it. This is so in. This is totally.
You want to say hi?
Hey, honey.
This is Beverly. And you want to know a little known fact that we're going to put out on the internet? Do you know where she was conceived? Atlanta during Silent Night.
And we just got our teaser, ladies and gentlemen.
I knew that because, as you know, the Atlanta Opera apartments are very close together. So
yeah.
Hey, Chelsea.
Chelsea, you want to come and say hi?
Hi.
Hey.
Happy COVID time.
This is, Andy. This is Mike.
Yes, hi Mike. It's nice to meet you.
Good to see you.
Hi, Andy.
Good to see you again.
It's so good to see you too.
All right, we're talking.
I'm sorry that she interrupted.
Not at all.
It was a wonderful interruption.
All right.
Do it
I love you,
again.
sweetie. I'll see you soon. Okay, I'll see you real soon. No.
Oh.
She's a daddy's girl.
She is.
Through and through. Okay, come here, girlfriend. You want?
I don't mind. So I'll just talk.
Okay.
She doesn't. So
That's great.
Audebert is introduced to the audience.
Wait, let me go get my kids.
Right. Exactly. So Audebert is introduced to the audience when he's saying goodbye to his wife who is pregnant and heading off to the front, and she is being like, "No, you can't go, you can't go," and he's like, "I'm sorry, this is my responsibility. I gotta go do this." And then as we go on in the show, we are introduced to his aide de camp, Mr. Ponchel, who Andy plays. And they have a really special friendship and relationship between the two of them. Ponchel being somebody who sort of tends to every one of Audebert's needs and is faithful and true, and gives him we have a moment during Ponchel's aria where Ponchel sings about going home and what home means to him. And we actually even sing it around here all the time.
Really?
Du café chaud encore meilleur que le mien.
Oh, that's funny.
We always sing this, like, du café chaud. Every single time that we have hot coffee, we start singing this little line of Ponchel's aria talking about how wonderful it would be to go back to his mom and the hot coffee and to just sit there in silence on the front porch and just like be.
Yeah, so Ponchel is the aide de camp and he makes really good coffee. So he's already got an in with Lieutenant, and he takes pride, like I make the best coffee in the world, and Audebert's saying like, well, don't give me any of that crappy coffee, and like, hey man, my coffee's great. And so we have this sort of like this banter, and it's sort of a moment, these guys were told that the war was going to be over in a month, and they've just had this battle.
We know that story, don't we?
Yeah, we sure do.
Right?
It's really interesting, right? The way that Ponchel sings that aria and the expectations of it all. It fits really well into this narrative we've got going on right now.
And he's just been in a battle where he lost a third of his men, and he's like in the process of logging all the casualties. And Ponchel, one of the things that he feels like, if he can bring a moment of levity to his lieutenant's day, then he's, that's one for the win column for that day, and so he'll make a joke, he'll bring him his coffee, cut his hair, and then we have this little bit where he finds lice in his hair and says like, "Hey, little Wilhelm, I'm gonna kill you," and it's just it's a really great moment. And Ponchel, he lives just an hour away on foot, and he talks about this is a really intimate moment where he's cutting Audebert's hair, and he's like Matt was saying, he says, I wouldn't normally tell anyone this, but there's times I think about just leaving and going to my mom's house and having a cup of coffee with her and sitting with her in her old greasy stove. But she makes better coffee than me, even, if you can believe it. And then there's this really long, awkward silence. And then it's kind of back to business, back to making jokes. Yeah.
And that's such a special
Man, I can tell
moment
you,
that the two of them.
Just hearing you guys, just hearing you guys talk about it right now. If I was in that audience,
Yeah, I remember
done.
Yeah, and it takes a good director as well to be like, listen, we don't need to rush through that moment.
Yeah.
Right.
To allow those moments to live. And we were lucky enough to have Tomer, of course, on our side. And Mike, you've worked a bunch with Tomer, right? You guys did Rigoletto together and other things?
Dead Man Walking twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that he's somebody that will allow those moments to ring.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and he's got great respect for the source material. And like, he is really can't say enough about Kevin's score and Mark's libretto. And I mean, a lot of the stuff it's just there on the page,
Yeah.
and like that moment, it's like this chunk of rest, and it says Lunga, and it's just like Kevin and Mark are begging you, don't rush this moment, and like you said, Tomer really respects.
And so
that.
this moment you're talking about is a pause.
Yeah.
And you're speaking with each other. And it just sort of suspends across this.
The music, I'm singing this aria, and the music sort of fizzles away, and then I sing this sort of recit where I say, if I'm fantasizing about having this conversation with my mother and drinking coffee, and I say, yeah, she'd tell me the gossip from the town, and we'd just sit there in silence, in a magnificent silence. Oh, anyway, geez, you got some lice in your hair.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? Like for these men who have been in the trenches for as long as they have been, and like the incessant jibber jabber, and then of course the war that's going on, the appeal of just a moment of silence and intimacy, how that rings true. And I'm not sure, up until, Andy, you'll be able to say this, are there, up until that point, any real moments of prolonged silence in the score, or is that really one of the first moments that like the audience gets to go?
I think it is. I mean, it really is, because we've just had this massive battle scene, which is like a 7-minute long orchestral, like virtuosic piece of music that is just assaults you on every level. And then on top of that, there's all the sound design that goes with it that's really beautifully designed by Andrew Meyer, and just incredible stuff. And then it quiets down, but that is the first moment where everything just stops. Yeah.
It's a wonderful.
It's a breath.
Yeah.
You got to take a breath. I mean, that's.
Yeah.
I'll tell you.
I mean, there's so many moments.
One of the things about a great libretto is that regardless of the subject that this libretto was on, whether it's, war or a relationship, well, it's all about relationships, but you know what I mean, regardless of what they're trying to tell, if there's a universality to it, that's not general, but it's it's something very specific that plays into a universal emotion.
Yeah.
And for people like right now, who can't go see their mom and dad.
Yeah.
Right.
I wanted to go see my parents, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all this stuff, I really want to see my parents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we can't. And Ponchel, yeah, man. I mean, that's the point. Is like we can't understand what these guys went through. We can't.
No.
But we can get an idea of just a fraction of what they went through.
Yeah,
that fraction is what makes us all go along with them,
Yeah. Yeah, and simultaneously,
totally
I think it's that this like longing for comfort of the known, of something that we know and is comforting in itself. And Ponchel wants his mom, and Audebert wants to be back with his wife, and that's what he sings that whole aria, right, about going back and like imagining what she must be doing with their newborn child who he's never even met. Like sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, what I wouldn't give to be there with you. But I'm sure that, you know, like you two are laying there together and you're listening and like giving a little smile and like,
oh dude,
just
listen,
to be,
this story is so, this, I mean, that's one of the things about this subject, about war and PTSD and estrangement, that we as artists can sort of, it's why I think that's why these stories work so well in the theatrical medium, because there is somewhat of a kinship in this thing. And like when these stories, that there's so many common themes that arise. And when I do Glory Denied, the thing that kept Colonel Thompson alive, and I talk about this show all the time, and I'm not going to apologize for it, because it's a meaningful show and it has impact that helps people, just like this one does.
Yeah.
And one of the things that kept Colonel Thompson alive for 9 years was being able to come back home to his idealized family, his perfect wife, who didn't exist, but you know, his 3 perfect little daughters, and his son that he thought was his son, but his wife was pregnant when he left to go to Vietnam, and he didn't see any of them again for 9 years. And you hear these themes coming all the time, that these guys, they have to sort of, to protect themselves and their own sanity, they go into themselves and they create this idealized, Disneyfied world idea of their life, and they hold on to it for dear life. And then they come back to the civilian world, and it's nothing like what they imagined. And it's completely changed because it's been 5, 10, 2, 3 years later. It's the Odyssey, man.
We tell, I think back to your point about universality and stuff. I mean, I'm not a soldier, but I mean, as humans, we tell ourselves stories all the time to get through whatever we're going through. And like in Silent Night, there's a young soldier whose brother dies in the first 5 minutes of the opera, and he's writing letters to his mom, and he's saying like, you know, boy, you'd sure be proud of him. He killed 2 Jerrys today, and you know, thanks for the mittens. They're keeping both of our hands warm, and don't worry, we'll guard that cake you sent us with our life. But you know, he's like trying to protect his mom, her feelings, and like,
and himself, I'm sure, like keeping his memory. Keeping his memory alive, telling whatever lies you have to tell to yourself and to others to just keep yourself above water. Yeah.
Let me ask you guys: are you slated to do this show again in the future? Either one of you?
Not at the moment. No. I hope so. I hope to be.
Well, I hope somebody's out there listening to this show and can put one on for you. Because man, I'll just be honest with both you guys. You know, I said it at the top of the show, and I'll say it again, that I've always admired both of you. Andy and I had one of the most heartbreaking experiences ever for me, as far as a young artist, is watching Friederike von Stade plead for Joseph de Rocher's life as his mother.
Yeah.
And my memory of this, of course, you know, everything 20 years ago, that's a rose-colored, that's some deep rose in those rose-colored glasses.
Yeah.
But I remember losing it, just breaking down right there. And I'd never done that before, you know.
No.
Never. Opera. Get out of here. You know.
And we're supposed to be these prison guards, supposed to be these tough as nails guys, right? And I remember,
like, be tough.
Yeah, and we're like, I remember our buddy Dan came up to me and he's like, "Hey Andy, this is my impression of you during that scene."
Fucking dead pageant.
Yeah.
I love that guy. I just saw him a couple of in New York City when we were there over the fall. And he came and visited. He came and visited in Des Moines and helped me with.
I love that dude.
And
that's great.
Good guy, man. I mean,
yeah.
But that moment, I mean, it is seared into my head as one of those kind of formative moments where I was like, well, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do.
Was this at Cynthia? Was this at Cincy Opera while you guys were at CCM? Is that what the deal was?
Yeah.
And like,
and then,
go
then
ahead.
I saw this. Then I saw this guy do his thing.
Oh, what a man and a performer.
This is the original gangster right here, y'all. This guy could do it like nobody could. He could wreck audiences, boy. Bob Worth. I keep him right here next to me at the office, so I just remember what the hell I'm doing this for.
I mean,
but we saw him do that. He did the same thing to us. Set the bar.
Yeah.
And then I saw Matt at 3 Decembers at Fort Worth. And dude, I was inconsolable after that show. You're Bert, are you?
Yeah.
I mean, I felt like I learned things about people watching that show.
Yeah,
and
it's a great. You want to talk about another like fantastic libretto and composer.
Yeah,
I mean, like the pairing and just like the storytelling that happens in there. But you know what? It's funny that we're talking about like the crying and stuff because you were in the lobby. You were inconsolable.
Yeah. I couldn't talk.
It's okay, man. Come on in here. Let's just hug it out. Let's hug. It's okay. It's okay. We're good. We're good here, man. Just give me a hug. Just give me a hug.
Yeah.
Let's
there was like
talk.
4 of us up there just like,
like
you know, when you're trying not to cry and you're making those, like, don't cry. You know, relax, sir, please. You're making a lot of noise.
Man.
It's quite a moment.
So Matt and I were apprentices together at Glimmer Glass in 2005 and 2006, and we had a lot of we were fast friends, had a lot of really, really awesome times. But then we didn't get to work with each other until we did Grapes of Wrath together at Carnegie Hall in 2010.
Yeah.
And Matt had sung there before, and I had not. And Matt did this really awesome thing. It was basically right out of the movie Hoosiers, where Gene Hackman, they go to the state tournament and Gene Hackman takes the team and says, like, I want you to measure the distance.
Measure the basketball hoop here.
How high is the basketball hoop? 10 feet? Okay, I think we're good. Matt was like, why don't you take the stage with me? And he's like, we walked on center stage and we're like looking at the lights and we're looking at all the stuff. And I was like, are you Gene Hackman in Hoosiers right now? Like, yeah, I am.
I was like, go ahead. Sing a note.
Thank you. I needed that. That was awesome.
You know what the thing is about? You know what happens at Carnegie Hall? The same things that happen in like West Hartford Town Hall.
Yeah.
You know?
The orchestra's going to come on. They're going to tune. The conductor's going to go like this. And yeah. Anyway.
And you're going to sing. Awesome. And you're going to sing your part because you do it as well as anybody in the world. And then it's going to be like really awesome. And then that'll be it. Yeah.
But and another thing I just want to say too about our time in Atlanta together, it's rare that you get. I mean, it's rare that you get to work with your friends, especially 2 baritones. Never get to work.
Never happens.
Never.
And, always the best when it does, though.
Yeah. But
I think that's probably why. Kevin and Mark did this piece. He was like, "Listen, we need these guys to have more friendship time." Like,
yeah, pretty sure.
Someone to go hunting with.
But I mean, we had Nicole Paimon in the conducting, and she, being that we were in the French camp, I think she took extra special care of us.
Nice.
But she told us, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think she told us on like the first or second day, she's like, "You guys sing. I will take care of you. I don't want you to count. I don't want you. You know your music. Just sing." And I rarely had experience like this where I'm gonna get choked up now, but where you walk in and your scene partner looks you dead in the eye.
Yeah.
You are just talking to each other. It didn't feel like I was doing an opera. It didn't feel like I was singing. I for sure wasn't thinking about if my larynx was tilting or not, or whether or not I had taken a proper breath. I wasn't thinking of anything except looking at my friend in the face and having a conversation with him. And boy, man, you cannot put a price on that. That's like one of the experiences of my career, just having those moments.
You remember
having those
every
moments.
single one of them. Every one of them like that. Like, it's seared. You can't ever forget. The way their eyes look, the way the stations in their pupils are. I can remember the people's eyes perfectly in those moments because there's nothing in between you and them.
No.
Yeah. God,
That's what I
was
miss.
so good.
I miss that.
Yeah.
Me too.
But we're gonna do it again, guys.
Yeah.
I know. I mean, the good thing about this show and this network that David has put together at Dallas Opera is that this is a thing that's going to happen long after the stage lights come back on again. You know, what we're doing now, we're remembering the good stuff. And we're trying to remember where we went. And sometimes it's not so clear, especially if it's just a couple of years ago. But now we have the time to really take a hard look at where we've been and make sure we know exactly where we've been. And that way we can be coiled like a spring with our powder dry and ready to pounce back on that stage when the lights come back on again. And it's going to happen again. We have so, like I'm saying, every opera singer in the world is a strung out junkie right now because they took our drug away. Yeah. But every audience member that loves opera and theater and live performance and group catharsis, they're the same way. They're having the same withdrawals that we are. And so when they open up the theaters again, and everybody's going to be hungry for it. And I think, you know what? It's a great time to take risks with pieces like Silent Night if you're a company. Because you know what? Your audience is going to come back anyway. They want it. Show them something they've never seen before. And show them something that may just give them a catharsis about the experience that they just had.
Yeah.
We are at war right now.
And
we are at war.
Double down on being artistic and don't make the safe choice, you know, like, yeah. And another thing I would be remiss if I didn't mention one of the major themes of Silent Night in the time we're living in right now is that it's a story about how you see your sworn enemy and you share a drink with them and you put down your gun and you can't go back to looking at them as a monster the next day because you had that experience.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That is something we can all understand.
Yeah.
I have been seeing this. I've seen relationships repaired. I mean, things that were looked permanently broken. I've seen them repaired. I've seen political enemies in our community. I mean, like diametrically opposed, vehement opponents viciously attack each other on the internet. Now they're allies working towards a common goal. And look, there's a lesson in that for all of us, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that we should do that. I think that if you're a company out there, you're looking for something that's going to be meaningful for folks, you know, I think you should do Silent Night. And I think you should hire these two guys to do it.
And maybe Mike
Wilkowske.com.
And maybe a little bit of Mike Mays.
Maybe I'll direct it. I don't know. I like
to do it.
I was supposed
an opportunity.
Well, one of these days. Well, you know, like I said, we got time.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank y'all so much for coming on the Quick and
thank you.
I mean, if I'm going to do these quick takes out of things that define what the Quick is. And guys, I can't imagine two fellers that have exemplified that more than you two.
Oh,
and I really thank you for your time.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you times a million. It's great being here with you, for real.
Great to see your face. Great to see your face, Matt, too.
You bet, Andy. I miss you, Bubba.
Likewise.
That's going to be the last thing on the podcast. I miss you, Bubba.
I miss you, Bubba.
I do. I just miss you guys.
Oh, guys, that was great. That was really great.